Hey, what's up, Liron here. Thank you for joining me in another video. Today's another tutorial. I'm going to show you how I paint the light and shadow patterns on the car. This kind of a very smooth surface has a very nice reflective quality to it, which creates interesting light and shadow patterns that I want to show you how I recreate here. I kind of got the result I wanted, not exactly, there's a long way to go, but it's a nice process and you will see me fixing things as I go along. Okay, so with that being said, let's get started. So I'm gonna do something that if you've been following me for a while, you know I seldom do, and that is actually using a grid. I do feel like I want to show you how I get the drawing a little more accurately this time. So what I basically have is this grid on my paper and the exact same grid on my reference photo. I will put a link down below to the edited photo with the grid on it, so you can use the same grid as I do, or you can just use Photoshop or whatever, any software. There are a couple of them that can do this kind of a thing. So let's see how we use the grid method to kind of get the overall proportions right. What I'm doing is looking first for places of the car that intersect with my grid. If they intersect with the intersection of the grid, that's perfect. If not, it's not the worst case, and we can kind of eyeball it. So first we have the bottom part of the bumper is actually somewhere around here and at this direction. Now the other part is 1, 2, 3 around here. So for the, and you know what, maybe even this is the top part of the bumper, this is the bottom. So we get something like this, okay, for the bottom part of the car. And what we're gonna do is repeat this process over and over again to get the ultimate drawing going. Here we have an intersection of the body of the car with this dot here. Where else we have a clear-cut connection. I don't see too many of them, so I'm just going to start putting in any connection I see. So this obviously goes like this, and I'm still using fairly straight and rough lines. Now, if you look at this curve, it kind of meets around, if you look at this square, around this area of the square. Okay, so like that, then going up, cutting this around here, and cutting this around here, a little under the middle. This goes straight through the middle, and this goes a little lower yet again. Okay, so we get this kind of a curve for the top part of the car. For the side, we get this thing and then this thing. The windshield, this should be shorter, so somewhere around here. The windshield somewhere around here. And then it cuts it a little more up there and then here. And then I draw this in, connect the dots I put in. It goes above this and it kind of repeats that same length. So 1, 2 for the top part of the frame. Or you could look at it otherwise, another way, this runs through the center. Okay? This method has some advantages and some disadvantages. I think if you make a mistake here, it's going to be compounded because you're relying on your grid for everything. And I personally love to have the ability to eyeball whatever I want. But I did want to show you one way of doing it using this method. So I'm going to jump through a lot here. This cut through, not the center, a bit to the left, maybe even a third of this length, so around here. So I'm going to place that kind of a line here. This is a fairly horizontal line like that, where the mirror is. The mirror gets all the way up to here. I'm starting to get into details, but I shouldn't, so let's take a break from that and continue. This, you have to understand the shape of the car. So if you look at the front part, it's kind of around that center point between these two lines of the square, so around here. And then it meets this around here. So we get this interesting curve, ends around here, not touching this part. And then we connect it to the left through here. This goes down a bit, connects through here. This makes the top part. It actually cuts through this corner, which is really nice. Goes here and connects to the headlight of the car, somewhere around here. You see how the structure begins to form? We have a light and shadow line going through here and around the headlight. This goes through like that. Here, same thing. It goes through here, connects to the headlight that's around here. Just look at how it cuts through the frame, the grid we created. It goes part way around this part, a little less here and a little less here. So somewhere around here. And try and get it as accurate as you can. But if it's not 100%, that's still fine. This cuts through the middle, let me see, bottom and then here it's kind of taller than this curve. This is the disadvantage of this method, because nothing is really fully accurate. You just kind of have to eyeball some parts regardless. So in any case, you know, I want you to build that skill, but you can get away with doing this kind of a method from time to time. I will add to that that if you're working on a very complex composition, a very large scene, it's very helpful to be able to use the grid method, because sometimes you have to use it to place in all the elements, you know, especially if you paint larger, and it's not so much about eyeballing the proportions in your paper, it's actually you have to get a huge piece of paper and spread things out evenly. It's just, it can get super tricky, so sometimes you have to use this method. And here this goes through here. This entire right side of the car gets foreshortened, so it appears to be much more tightly squeezed than it actually is. This connects through here, and then we have the back part of the back tire connecting through here. Goes like that. This tire cuts through this area, goes to about a third of this length, so around here, and this is where the cast shadow is. We'll meet this around the center, but they don't meet really, so just putting in a line that's kind of parallel to this line, you see? I know I'm going a little fast because I do want to get to the painting stage really and talk about the light and shadow patterns, so sorry about that. I will, if you want to, do a specific video on using the grid method, okay? So let me know if that's something you're interested in, and we'll focus just on that. This goes down, goes like this, parallel to this line, and then goes back up somewhere around here, okay? This curves, obviously, goes like that. This has two of these details in here, so one, and then two, and you see I'm looking at where they are in relations to the grid. That's why this method is so good for getting things accurately. Not the center, but a little to the right, putting this detail of the car in, cutting through this area, going all the way to this part of the bumper, all the way to this part of the bumper. Then we have this upper frame and lower part that's basically divided into these kind of curvy, slightly curvy lines. See, like this. There's this symbol here, logo, whatever that is, like so. Notice something really cool. The part here of the center of this section goes into the front and curves down, and this helps us to better see the structure of the car. I'm gonna get rid of some of these lines here, they're wrong. And then this is divided again to halves, and this kind of connects through here and goes down with the curve, and same thing going on here and going down with the curve and going back here and back here. Okay, so this helps us see the structure of the car a little better. Now here's what I want to do. I'm gonna get rid of the grid, and then, well, I haven't really finished, so let's see what else I have to put here. This tire, this is all in the shadow. This tire, sorry, my bad, I had some other details to put in, like this. The cast shadow goes like that, something like this. There's the detail on the tire here, detail on the tire here. And I think with that, we're almost done. So now, let me get rid of the grid, and then we're gonna add the details of the light and shadow patterns, okay? So I got rid of most of the grid. Now, one thing I still haven't put here is the sidewalk, just a bit of a background to give this car. So it goes like this, pops out on the other side around there. So something like that, more at an angle than you'd think, actually. Let's flatten the angle a bit, change it up. I feel like it should be flatter. At the back, we do have some details for the buildings, but I'm not going to go into that probably at all. Notice how I'm going through with one continuous line. That's the only way to get these lines to look like they're connected. Many times you'll make the mistake of drawing one, drawing the other, and then they come out crooked. You have to go like that. You can go like this, and then ghost it and figure out where it is on the other end. Now, I'm just going to put in a couple of vertical lines for myself. Maybe I'll use them, maybe I won't, for doors and the different details. For now, let's do that. Now, we are done with drawing the structure of the car. what we're left with is getting in the patterns of light and shadow. So let's get started with the windshield. Actually, I see there's a bit of a shadow here, and then there's a person driving the car. So they have this sort of a very nice looking silhouette. There's the mirror, front mirror. And then we have this part connecting here, a bit of a light here. That's pretty much it. Now here, we have an important highlight going all around the front part of the car and converging. We didn't draw this, my bad. It's very easy with the grid method to forget drawing things for me personally, so that's another drawback. But this here is gonna be a highlight, okay? So we got that in, and no matter how much you're gonna draw here, you'll still have to rely on your reference. You still will have to constantly examine things and make sure they work out. Here we have this highlight here. It goes all the way to the corner and goes around like that, okay? Like here, and it also connects to these lines. So this is a highlight too. We'll get to that later. Here we have this shape. It goes like that. Connects here. We have a bit of a detail here. It goes like that. Connects to a more well-lit area of a highlight. This goes here. We have the headlight, and we have another mini detail underneath that with a highlight in it. On this section, we have a highlight that goes like this, goes like that. This is why I love cars, and old cars have all these curves that are wonderful to practice this kind of a thing. Sorry for going into a lot of details in the drawing stage. It's just a must for me, and hopefully you'll power through it. You can always skip it, don't forget. I know it. Usually people skip to the painting stage. I'm fine with that. Here we go. There's a highlight here around the headlight. There's a bit of a highlight here, a bit of a highlight here, highlight on the top part of the mirror for sure. These are highlights. So I think now we're basically done with putting in the light and shadow. What we now have to do is, and I'm going to disregard the person here, they're irrelevant. I'm going to do an initial wash that shows everything but painting around the highlights, okay? I feel like I have to cover the whole thing up. There's a highlight here in the dead center of the car. I think that's the wiper, but I'm not sure. That's weird. I think that's the wiper. There aren't too many highlights here, actually. There's this, here, a bit of it here, a bit of it here, and here. So I'm going to do the best I can to paint around these, leave the edges blended, and still get it to look good, okay? That's all you can pretty much do. I'll try going with a bit of an alla prima approach here, getting the darks in, if possible, as soon as possible. But we'll see. We'll wing it. This is the kind of processes that I don't know exactly what they're going to turn out like. Okay, so let's do our best and get started. So I'm going to rely mostly on my phthalo blue, and I'm starting with a fairly watery wash. And I'm going to test it out to see what it looks like. It's always useful to have a test paper. So this is fairly light. Let's add a bit more to it. Let's make it a little more substantial. And I think we're good to go. So I'm gonna get started with the top part of the car, like so. One swipe of the brush if possible. And now we're gonna connect it with the bottom part, okay? So a bit more of the paint, and we're gonna fill in this area around here. Now, I'm not gonna bother with blending this too much, to be frank with you, because it's so thin. I think I'm gonna get myself into trouble, quite honestly. So now here's how we're gonna approach this. I'm gonna just continue moving with the mixture I have, merging everything and just painting around the highlights. I did mute some of that blue. I'm gonna go back to the pure one soon, okay? But I just wanted to mute it for the windshield. And I'm just gonna paint around whatever I deem as a highlight, okay? This is gonna stop here, right next to the mirror. It's kind of similar to what we did with the flutist, however it is a little different. Okay, so that's a car. It's a very differently structured subject. Different types of curves, different types of details, different things to watch out for. And yeah, different highlights to paint around. So here we go, left side. I'm gonna go over this whole thing. Here I'm gonna leave a highlight. So pay close attention. I'm gonna leave this as a highlight. We're gonna get to the right section in just a moment. Windshield. Let's go over the left section here. If I can, I said I would go alla prima, but it's quite hard. If I can, I'll try and get in some variation in value for the darker colors. I can't guarantee anything. There's a small highlight. Let's leave that near the edge, kind of a reflected light thing going on. Go around the bottom here. Connect this, because that's a shadow. And then here, I'm gonna leave this thin highlight on the detail on the top of the car. Gonna do the same with this one, maybe even make it a little thicker, like so. Shadow. And I think we're done with this section. Let's have a rest here. And you know what, let's do a first wash. I'm not gonna take a risk. Let's do a first wash that's kind of... I do want to try. Notice this highlight and then shadow. This is going to create a really cool effect. But I really do want to try getting some variation in. I'm tempted, so let's do that. I'm going to stop talking about it and actually get it done. So let's get a bit of a darker value here. It's kind of a similar thing, just a little more muted. Let's see how this does. So just putting in some darkness to it, because it is a gradual transition, so I think it will be a mistake not to do some of it in wet, so let's do that here. Like this. Here we have an easy spot to stop in. You see this kind of a thing now around this highlight. Now here you have to use the same principle I talked about in the previous video of using wet washes. This will really help you to keep things alive and make sure you get the shapes you want before it dries on you. It's not easy. It's really not easy, okay? Now this is gonna somewhat connect with this area here. Usually when I do these kinds of washes, what will end up happening is I'll get an area that I didn't get the right transition I wanted, where it kind of backfires on me doing this alla prima. But I'm gonna live with it, and we'll see how that goes. So a bit more of the pure phthalo blue here. Let's see what we can do with it. I'm gonna go back to some pure paint around here, and fearlessly connect it to this section that's starting to dry. And then go around the highlight here. See, there's a highlight. Going around that, around this. This edge really needs to be blended. So let me go ahead and go kind of like this. And then blend the edge. Gonna do my best. You see how I carefully render the shape? Using wet washes, the only way to go when you want to gradually change things up, you know, make sure you're still in control. Honestly, I think with more skill you can get away with getting more details in on the first go. For me, it's still hard. Here, let's lighten it up near the bottom, then have this kind of a shadow coming through here, because I do see that shape, like so, and then work our way around this highlight, and around this highlight, and under this shadow. Now I'm trying to figure out where to place everything in. We have the shadow here, and then this goes into a, let's see, bit of a darker value down below, like this. Here it's gonna get dry on us, so let's work that area in with a bit of a neutral shadow. And it's still wet enough to blend, so we're fine. This goes a little darker here. This goes a little darker there. There's this shape here. I hope this isn't incredibly boring. If it is, let me know in a comment, but I do think this is the work, you know, this is how you paint these scenes. I didn't leave a highlight for the circular thing around. Let's leave this and hope it'll connect. If not, I'll edit with paint out of the tube, as I like to do sometimes. See, I told you there's going to be a section that won't dry. that won't stay wet and will dry on us, but that's fine. Back to the phthalo here. A bit muted here with some yellow. I'm fine with that actually. Going around this, going around the tail light, the headlight, sorry. So I'm gonna pick up the pace, even though it's a video I'm trying to explain what I'm doing. I'm gonna have to work a little faster. Sometimes working slower can really backfire on you. This is a shadow. And in any case, whatever I miss here, I'm gonna, let's blend this edge. Whatever I miss here, I'm gonna fix in the next stages, so I'm fine with that. Going over the bumper, like so. Using a somewhat muted blue. A bit of a shadow right through here. And over the symbol of the car's company. A bit of a shadow through here. And actually, let's go like this. Let's put a shadow under all of this. And then connect the shadows in between them. I think this will work out. We'll see how it goes. Like so. Trying to be fine with some areas drying and not being fully even. Because in this kind of a, if you're really trying to get this thing, you know, alla prima with a lot of details in, you're bound to mess some things up. Let me blend this edge here. And you said you enjoy seeing me struggle too, so I think you'll enjoy this one as well. Sometimes you're trying to, let's say, swallow more than you can in one go, and you just end up with some trouble on your hand, but I'm gonna be fine here. So let's make this, let's go a little more expressive near the bottom. I'm gonna connect what I have to a bit of a warmer cast shadow. Totally arbitrary, totally random. I did not think I'll do that, but I feel like doing it, okay? So this will happen sometimes. I'm just warming up the lower section, like this. Leaving this gap here that's fairly important, but then going into some more red, making this warmer. Like this. Making it kind of fiery, feel like there's some kind of a warmth or reflected light in the cast shadow, see? I missed the highlight right, painted right over it, so that happens again. I'm gonna go like this. Once I darken this area, it's not gonna be as visible. Shadow here. Let's see what we got. This goes around and connects to this section. Here there's a bit of a shadow. I'm gonna add that with that same red. A bit of a shadow here, like so. Shadows on these two elements, whatever they are. And I think with that we can let go of the first wash. Nothing perfect, we're gonna fix the balance, trust me, okay? I'm actually gonna connect it with the sidewalk, make it a little more, perhaps, yellow or warm too, like this. So that's one. And then there's two. And we'll let that go for now. So this is dry. Now, here's the thing. We're at a very interesting point, and if there's anything I want to convey to you with my videos is to not give up on your paintings. Because right now, this doesn't match my vision. It's not what I imagined for this painting. I do love this section, but it's still not exactly it. A couple of things. These areas obviously should be darker. Reflected light should be clearer. The dark color here is pretty dead and muted, where it should be dark blue. Because of the chromatic nature of this, the metal, the shadows are fairly similar in color to the lighter section. So you want to be able to convey that. So what I will do now, as I said, it's not exactly what I planned for. I'm not giving up on it. What I'm gonna do is work it out section by section and slowly fix it. Okay, so let's get started, and I'm gonna show you how you shouldn't worry about these things, and you should just try and add more and more details, because right now you have to understand, and you may love this. This painting is just the way it should look right now. It's perfect, okay? It's just still work in progress. You have to understand that, okay? You have to realize that It's not done, it's not doomed, it's not failed, it's just work in progress. Now let me zoom in a bit, because we're really focusing on the car here, and I'm gonna do my best to slowly pick it up and improve upon what we already have. This part, I see it as darker. It's still highly transparent and still fairly light, but it is a little darker, okay? Also thick. Now the advantage is we got so much of the detail in, we can work in sections. We now don't have to worry about the overall thing. Now here there is a bit of a reflected shadow here as well, and a bit of that here. So this pattern subconsciously is gonna read really nicely. Now I do want to blend some of its edges, not to make it as starking as it is right now, so kind of like that. See? That'll work out really nicely. Now, onto the windshield. Here I do plan on muting it, because it's probably one of the only things that is really muted here. Not too much though, because it shows through some of the things that are behind it. This is why it's muted. So let's do this kind of a thing, see what we end up with. Still a pretty wet mix, but darker. And we actually shouldn't go too dark here. Actually, I should preserve something here at the back. Let's go like this. This is the front mirror. See, I messed it up. I went over the wiper. So you really have to focus sometimes. I'm going to get rid of some water around the highlight. I love that the recent videos are me trying to get something and failing at it a couple of times. Because that will really teach you how it's still, no matter how much you practice, there's always so much to learn, and there's always, the learning curve is really a spiral. I really believe that. Let's make this lower just for impression's sake. It shouldn't make sense, but I'm just gonna make the mirror a little lower. You see now it reads as a mirror a little better. The person here behind the wiper, I don't want to cover that highlight as well, so like this, and around like that. Now here, instead of letting go of this section, instead of letting go and moving on to the next section, I'm gonna stay on this area a bit longer and actually mix a bit of a darker mixture here for the frame. We're gonna get the frame in right now, okay? More of the blue, more of the red. And we'll get the, here we go, the dark frame in right now, and it'll make a better differentiation between this section and this section. You see, like this, and I don't care if some of it blends. I'm actually fine with that, which is why I do it wet and wet. I prefer that some of it blends like this, like that. Bit of the wiper itself, and with that we're pretty much done with this section. Now we have this side here, so let's get that. Now you see there's a frame, so I'm gonna get that in around the window, and then we have a couple of other shadows within it. Okay, so these are the small details you want to pay attention to. And again, if you want to reach a higher level of realism, it's actually one of the things you have to pay attention to, all of these details. I kind of messed up the frame here. Let's get rid of that. Whatever, that's fine. So yeah, don't be like me and actually take your time with this. Quite honestly, I'm sometimes in a hurry making these videos. Not in an unhealthy kind of hurry, but I just want to get something there and publish it to the world, because just so many other things that I want to be doing, that I put in the maximum amount of time and effort I can. But admittedly, if you just do this as a hobby, or just, you know, you just paint, you do want to take a bit more time. Don't take my example for this in particular, take my example for different things. Like the work process and the thinking process and all of that. But when you actually do these, take your time, you can be a little more patient than I am. Now, this part feels a little darker. The trick is I have to darken it with pure phthalo blue. Otherwise, I'm just gonna lose the beautiful colorfulness of it. So let's go like this. just near the top here. And again, I don't mind it touching the frame. The frame is gonna blend anyway, like this. And it will bring out the beautiful phthalo blues color even better. Now I'm switching to just a wet brush, and I'm gonna blend that in, like so. Just help the paint move a bit. We're done with this section. Let's see, we have a thin frame, and I know I'm working on the very small details, but it's what makes it really. We have a small, thin, darker frame here. Here, it's time to darken it. I'm gonna darken it with some more phthalo blue, because again, I feel like that's what I see here. I'm gonna go around the reflected light like that. Just try and see its shape, figure it out, and cut around it. Go like this. Focus on the smaller shape. So the smaller shape we have here is this. And we're pretty much done. The only exception is we have this thing running out of here and connecting to there. We're gonna take care of this in a moment, but now let me blend. This brush has really good water capacity, which could be dangerous if you're blending, so you need to really soak out the water out of it. Gonna connect it to this section, gonna blend some of this edge here, gonna connect some of it here, and onto the front part of the car that's fairly dark. And again, here we're gonna use blue, pure blue, just to bring out the beautiful chromatic qualities of the car. Now this is a shadow. I'm gonna connect it through here. Should be a little lighter, so let me dab some of it out like that. Now here something interesting happens. You see there's this shape that goes up like this, down like that. You see this kind of a pattern. You want to pay attention to these things really. It will help you get a bit more of a realistic impression. This goes over like that. This shadow connects to the left section, but let me finish the center part first. So you see, hopefully that starts to make sense as a car. Really, I hope so. The main, notice this pattern, it just goes zigzag to this section. The main part here that I messed up and I still haven't got enough detail in is this. So this is where I'm going to put my emphasis on. But before we can move there, let me blend some of this edge here. Right around here, you see? Like so. That's really nice. Then I'm just going to use some paper very gently, see? And get some of it out. Actually, let's get back some light blue here. Just like that. Kind of like that. Blending is really hard. It's really something that some days I get to work the way I want, some days I don't. Don't get too frustrated with it. It's just a part of learning watercolor. Now here we have a shadow that moves all the way like that around here. And we have a highlight. So I'm going to paint around that highlight like this. And then it goes up and expands above the headlight. Gets a little darker through this section. Getting rid of some of the highlight there. Goes around this. Goes around that. And you see now it starts to take up the shape it should have. This is actually dark. Goes around the bumper. Like so. There's this curve here. Curve there. Shadow. Goes around here. It's darker. Not too dark, but it is darker. And here it's going to lighten up. So let me get rid of some of the water. Actually, let me fill in the headlight with some neutral shadows. Or at least some warmer shadows than the blue. Like this. I'm going to improvise a bit. Let's go like this. I'm going to make up the shape I see. It's not accurate. It's kind of what I see. And then we're going to lighten it up into light blue the more we move to the right. So something along the lines of this. Now I'm trying to figure out where the curve is for the tire. And it's here in the middle. I'm going to add that in just a moment, okay? This is fairly light. Let's wet this area up. We're going to get some of the other details later, so don't worry about them, like the really small shapes of light and shadow and all of that. We're gonna get to that later on. Just doing my best to create something that makes sense. Here, let's blend some of this upward like this. A little bit lighter, and we're gonna push it to be a little darker near the bottom, which is around here. And now I'm gonna start connecting it to the tire. So we have the back tire here, and we have to preserve the shape of the body of the car, which is something like that, you see? Going around this. Shadow is darker. Actually, let me go back to the warm mix that I did earlier, just to get this shadow in. Now here I have to connect, and if it's gonna blend, let it blend, that's fine. So this goes around here, kind of like that. Hopefully that makes sense. The shape of the tire, I kind of am partially losing track of its exact location. So I'm being very careful here not to go too overboard and over the borders, actually. I'm gonna leave this small highlight for the tire here, though it's not accurate. Let's get rid of it. Like this, get red. I'm gonna go a little crazy here on the shadowy part. This is all in the shadow. Like this. A hint of the tire. I don't know if it'll help us, but whatever. I'm gonna go around the shape of this thing, like so. Then through here and around the shape of this part. And get this as fresh as I can, like so. Because I want some parts of this really to be, you know, fresh and fun. Hopefully it starts to build up, okay? This is going to be a bit of a longer process, my bad. I'm trying to avoid these lately because it's just so hard to edit sometimes, but so be it. Now, lower part of the bumper. I'm going to connect it right into the shadow under the car. A bit of a risky move, and I'm going to add a bit of green to it. You know what, let's neutralize it now. Let's go like this. Lower bumper. A bit like that. And a bit like this. Let's connect this and that. There is a shadow here and then a highlight, so let's get these in here. This is in the shadow. This is in the shadow. 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 Let's put just a bit of yellow for the license plate. This stage I'm like, let's go, let's have a bit fun here. I've painted so tightly for the beginning of this. Let's have some fun there. Now let me put in some of the darkest shadows. I think that'll help us orient ourselves better around this piece in general. So I'm gonna put in this kind of a shadow here. Above all of these, then around, and then start connecting it with the individual shapes here. I'm actually touching the paint, that's not good. Let me try a different angle. This is dry, okay. Don't know why I'm being so challenged by the recent videos. I honestly, well, I may know why. I think I'm trying to challenge myself more and more lately, and what ends up happening is I'm, again, taking up more than I actually can, which ends up with some awkward results, to say the least, but I'm just rounding up the top parts here. But yeah, that's fine. That's just a part of it. I don't mind figuring this out with you, you know, figuring out where I got things wrong. I think you learn more from mistakes anyway. For me personally, that's the case many times. So you learn from wins too, but honestly, when you mess a painting up and then you revisit it after a while, I find that I learn a lot more. Now let's get these shadows at the bottom a little darker. I'm gonna go over the dark values I put in because they're gonna be blended anyway. And what's missing here is a bit of a shadow to the left side. Actually, this is too dark. Let me put in some water in here. Again, a risky move, let's do that. And I'm gonna add the shadows to the left sides of these metal pieces. So the highlight's gonna be on the right, okay? And again, I know if you want to get this to be more accurate, you have to spend more time. I'm trying to get, with this one, I planned on getting a bit more of a free impressionism kind of thing, but you know, then you start getting into the details and you maybe lose track of what's really important. But in any case, I think it's a little better now. Now, where am I missing a shadow? I'm missing a bit of a shadow at the back. I'm missing a bit of a shadow here. This is for the doors separation, and then the right side here. I'm missing this dark stripe, if you will, around here. Again, because of the smooth surface of the car, you get all these beautiful shapes in. I said I'll get them in later, so here we go. We have this beautiful shape moving to the right, and actually this is more in the shadow. This isn't fully dry, but it'll work out. It's dry enough to put in some paint into. In fact, let me go a little darker just on this spot here. Like so, and it's going to connect to this detail underneath. Make the highlight a little smaller. Make this a little darker, and there's no way I could get all these lines accurately if I hadn't had these brushes. They're just so good with the tip that's so thin and, you know, allows you to get all these small details in. We have this small piece here. And now I'm just going around trying to put in some shadows. There's this shadow here. This is in the shadow looks like that. We have this one that I already got in. Maybe let's put in a bit more interest right under the headlight. This has a dark shadow, like so. There's a very dark one right under the logo here, like this. Again, fairly impressionistic and interpretational. That's the vision I had. This is why I love cars. I don't know, I love to paint them this way. Let's darken the bottom section here. Getting rid of some of the paint, just trying to reassess the situation. I really like this section here. I think there's a lot to improve, but I am close to finalizing this. So let me see what I can pull off. I'm gonna let this dry one last time, come back and start making some corrections as I see fit. So we're nearing the end, and I wrote myself down some corrections to make. First thing, I'm gonna start with the left headlight and get in the pattern of light and shadow within it. So right here, we have this strong shadow down the center, and goes a little lighter and a bit towards the right. Then we have this kind of mid value here. It's gonna dry a little lighter. This shouldn't be as light, but I'm gonna leave it because I like it, and it's such a small piece that I don't have room to make this mid value. I actually prefer to keep it this way. Here, we're gonna get this a little darker. Now we have a shadow underneath the car that I'm gonna merge again with the bumper and darken. So a lot of red, a bit of blue, and a lot of hope. So let's go like this. Black, little detail, and darken this. I know I may regret this. I may think to myself, oh, it was better when you could see something in that shadow. If that's the case, then my bad. But I feel like I have to push it darker. It's too light. It doesn't anchor the car enough by my book. And I think a lot of the thing is my standards have rose, so in my eye and the way I recognize mistakes has improved. So when I make mistakes, I'm less forgiving and I'm better at catching them. But sometimes, you know, you're better at catching the mistakes, you're not so good at avoiding them in the first place and actually improving your skill to match how much you can recognize when you make mistakes. So it's one of these points. This is Ruth's hair. I'm gonna get it out of here. So it's one of these points in my painting career that I'm gonna go over this. That's just there's a lot of work to be done, for sure, and hopefully I can get it done and improve these things. Now we're done with the shadow underneath. Now here I do have a section I want to mute down a little with a bit of blue, pure blue, so let me do this. It's not pure, but it's close to it. Around here, you see it should continue a little higher, like this. And then I'm gonna blend that edge, okay? Something like that. Connect it even to the shadow here. So that's that. I wrote down a list for myself, and then we have the right side here. I also want to get a bit of a pure blue to the left of that, or to the above it. What else? We have, so this we're done. We have the license plate that I want to get in first. You know what, let's do this. Let's get the license plate. Now here I'm going to pull out the big guns, the opaque paint, because I have to go lighter here. Unfortunately, I went way too dark. So I'm gonna clean the brush and dry it thoroughly, and then dip it into the opaque paint and just fill this section up. I have to get it lighter, you see, like that. I'm not too worried about using opaque paint, but I feel like it's contrasted beautifully with the blue, and I don't want to miss out on that effect, so here we go. And it cuts into the shadow a bit underneath. Let me get a bit more paint. This is gonna take, by the way, let's get rid of this. This is gonna take a bit longer to dry. I'm gonna use my hair dryer and we'll see how it goes. But I don't need it really to dry, other than adding the numbers to the license plate, which aren't as important, honestly. But hopefully now you can see how it actually is lighter than the rest of the elements. Now let's get out a bit more. This paint is fairly, if I recall, it's fairly transparent, so I don't get as much of an opaque effect, but I think it'll work out nicely. At least it looks like a license plate. Once I put the lettering in, and the numbers, it's going to be fine. And I think with that, we're done. I think this one's done. I want to call it done now. Let's try one last thing. So I do feel like I'm missing a bit of red, and there's actually red here. So the reference photo kind of solves that issue for me. So let me use a bit of red on the background. Do it in one go, nothing too detailed. I always say not too detailed, and then I end up making it too detailed. I'm not going to do it this time. Just a bit of red to contrast with the car. So here we go. Pure. I don't care that it kind of is dominant. Just compositionally, I feel like I need it here. Okay, so we didn't really do a finalized composition. It's a very loose painting of just the car as the center of attention. I didn't even plan on putting a background. But now that I think about it, compositionally it would benefit from it. So let's do that. Why not? I'm going to add a background all the way to the pavement, and then I'm going to stop. Okay, sometimes it's fun to add these loose backgrounds to a painting and just see it kind of opened up, and then it makes sense for this reflected light to be there. Here we go. And I will just do this at a bit of, you know, like a doorway or something like that. Sorry, touch the paint. Kind of like this. It just makes a nice contrast, for a nice contrast with the car itself. You could go darker than the car, you could go lighter than the car. I'm not really interested in that here. And I think we're gonna wrap it up here. I will show you just in the outro face-to-face what this ended up looking like with the license plate and everything, but I'm pretty pleased with it. So in any case, I hope you enjoyed this one. Now let's wrap it up. So this is it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. And once again, you see me kind of struggle with it and trying to get it right. And that's a part of the process. Never give up on your paintings. It's really important, okay? Now, if you want to learn how to paint like me, be sure to check out the frustration-free watercolor course, link in the description box below. If you enjoyed these videos, I really appreciate a like and subscribe if you still haven't, because that helps push the video and show it to more and more people. I really appreciate you watching the video. I'm so grateful for it, and I will see you again in the next one real soon.